Man, this comic book sucks! And the reviews online said it was good! I wasted my money! Why didn't somebody tell me?
Hey everybody, this is Spinner Rack. We're doing comic reviews. This is PD right here, and we have
Calvin Ellis. Good to be back. Let's hit it.
now in present day. There's a female Thor. That's Jane Foster, and we decided for this review to go back in time to see the last. Well, she had other stories within the original run.
Go back in time and see why she should not be Thor.
No, that's not what we're going. We're going back in time to our last sort of official visit with Thor. She does appear later in the Kirby run, but it's just sort of a glimpse at her where she was at. But this is our final story where Thor has finally decided that, you know what, he wants her as his woman. He wants to bring her to Asgard, to bring her to his home, and he's bringing her there to meet her father, like to really meet him. And they go to Asgard. And then Odin has this plan that he's come up with that she has to actually become a goddess for them to be together. So
Fair enough.
I don't know, but Odin has these weird ways. So Odin gives her power and she's using the power, she's unused to it. Can you move over for just a second, Cal, just so we can see Jane in her outfit? Yeah, there she goes. She has a little outfit, she's able to fly and whatnot. But she's kind of weary of it. I mean, she only gets one day with these powers. Then
Either you're worthy or you're not.
But not everybody's worthy. Not everyone has worthy.
Exactly the point. That was exactly the point of the story.
There we go. So then they have to go to this. They go and decide there's a final test for Jane Foster. She's going to go into this room, and there's something that looks oddly in this dark room that looks like the Four-Armed Terror. It was good to see that, Kirby decided, I'm not letting this design go to waste, so I'm bringing it to Superman. So Jane, of course, is totally freaked out by whatever this menace looks like. We can't see his face. And then Thor comes and saves her. She's like, she almost shot out of a cannon out of Asgard. And Thor's like, Odin, you're playing this whole thing. Father, how can you do this to me? And then, of course, he's Odin, so he's like, he basically puts the hammer down. But then, of course, the Four-Armed Terror, or this monster, is called again. And who appears? We kind of forget Jane Foster because a warrior woman, Sif, comes in.
Yes, a real one.
And she's a part, in the real Norse gods mythology, that's to be Thor's wife. So it's like, oh, wow, and she's a hottie? This works out perfectly. Jane who? No, Jane Foster. Well, Jane Foster is different. They added a different dynamic when they added Sif. But this is our goodbye to Jane. There was some issues. I mean, there's also some issues with Odin. But, this was our goodbye to Jane. So it's kind of odd going to the present day and she now being worthy, which we already proved. Whether you like the story or not, this is what it is. She kind of freaked out completely from the moment she got on Asgard. So
Kind of freaked out.
like she was scared of everything.
She did a full freak.
She went totally.
Which for me was a great story because a lot of people assume that, hey, if they're just given God-given abilities, on the level of what Jane was given, which she wouldn't have been on Thor's level either. Okay, she would have been like a lesser god, if you want to say to that. But the ability to fly, everybody thinks, oh, if I got the ability to fly, it'd be great. No, not everybody would be able to handle it. Not everybody would like it. You have spent the majority of your life living one particular way, having additional power. And this is something that we've seen in all these modern shows, that powers are this liability, that powers have these repercussions, these drawbacks, and all this other sort of thing. In that storyline right there, it's like, hey, if you want to be with Thor, no problem, but you have to live as a god. You can't, look, she can't be there as a mortal. Okay, it's just not going to happen.
Thor was okay with it though.
Thor is not Odin.
Odin has all these weird rules.
Odin is the guy who sacrificed one eye and crucified himself for 9 days in order to get wisdom. He knows what the heck he's talking about. So if he says this is the case, no problem. But the whole idea, it's no different than what he did with Thor. You can't have this hammer unless you're worthy. You have to be worthy of it. Jane, these are the abilities. And mind you, Jane didn't say in this story, hey, you know what? It's just one day. Let me see if I can get used to it. Jane said, get me the hell out of here. It wasn't like Odin said you have a time limit. Jane said, no, I don't want to do this. Send me back home. I don't like it here. I don't like this and I don't like it. And that was the end of the story at this point. And she was given 3 tests that were the first test was just fine. And she, it just didn't hold up to it.
His first test was getting on the Bifrost and her getting freaked at that. Like somehow it was real. It's never busy. This is the first day she gets out there. They're carrying trolls around.
Jane Foster was not up to snuff. Okay, mind you, Thor loved her anyway. Okay, he did not stop and say, you know what? Oh, I guess you're not the woman I thought you were, Jane. And you know what? I guess all those other girls I was shagging, even though he wasn't with any other women at the time, his devotion to Jane was true to the point he was willing to accuse his father of setting the whole thing up. And the cynical person would say, yeah, Odin set this whole thing up. But
Odin
again,
sets everything up.
That's given too much to Odin.
He's the all-father.
That's given too much to Odin and not enough to Jane's character. Not everybody's worthy of godhood. They're just not. And the story plays out. Odin never passes judgment on her. Odin never gives her a time limit. She says she wants to get the hell out of there. He acquits her of what she wants, and that's pretty much the end of that. So now we jump forward to today, and somehow Jane became worthy.
This is a dirty
Not only
trick.
just worthy, she's more worthy than Thor ever was, even in that story right there. Okay, because if we look at, what is that, Thor Generations? Oh, what is Thor doing now? Thor's like a jerk. He can't even lift up Mjolnir. He's, fighting with an axe. Though none of the prose Edda ever says that he uses anything other than his hammer. So, it's just whack. But this is, it's a story to remind people 2 things. 1, Jane was tried, she was weighed, she was measured, and she was found wanting. If you want to now say that she's worthy, you really have to explain what happened between then and now. And they did a lot to develop Jane's character. She wasn't just a nurse, she was EMT, she's running in a burning building, she's doing all this other type of stuff. Because every character, if you're a supporting character, these days the supporting character is no longer just like Foggy Nelson, where I'm a good attorney. Supporting characters now have to be almost just as good as the lead character, because everybody's got to be on. Because we don't want the other people who like that character feeling bad or that character feeling bad. But Jane was that particular supporting character, and they decided they would develop her more up to the point where, at the very least, she was more. She was a doctor now, so she went from being a nurse to a doctor, more competent in these areas. That explains that in that particular direction. We're never told why it is that she's now worthy to hold this hammer. We don't even know why Thor, to be quite honest, is not worthy to hold the hammer. But this is a great book to go back and look on, especially for those of you guys who are Jane enthusiasts. Wouldn't you like to know how it is that Jane went from being this lily-livered mortal into somebody worthy of holding Mjolnir? And how is it that Thor went from being this guy who was so in love with her to this cheating lech that we're being presented with? Here's how. People have never read this story, and the people who are presenting Thor as this repugnant shell of what he is supposed to be embrace that, because you can't have both. You can't have 2 noble characters running around. That defeats the purpose with Jane, because if Thor's noble, he's got to have Mjolnir.
It's turned from being a review to a slam on Jane, and now
was there ever any doubt where this was going to go?
But
we don't like you, Jane.
We know how comics go, and a lot of continuity gets steamrolled to do a different take that's completely against what happened before. But it's interesting to see, if you look at this and look at the older Thor, it was a little looser than the Fantastic Four, whereas they're like, all right, they made the new dynamic changes completely after this point, because it's then a Sif and Balder. And then you also had the Warriors 3, which were around, but it's like they added a new dynamic with the love triangle with Thor, Sif, and then Balder on the side, loving Sif, but not being Thor's best friend and not wanting to interrupt that. So it's interesting going back. I haven't, looked at that issue in a long time. It's a fun issue. It's sort of a quick exit for her and saddening, but because how tough Odin was all before that. He's just like, what is she doing? What? He's with that mortal again? Half your power, Thor.
That's right.
And that's the problem I have with Odin. He was almost a bad guy.
Odin was no love lost. He was like, you want to go? Hey, gotta go. See you later. see you later.
That's why Thor got mad. It's like you planned it. the way you made everything busy and crazy.
Odin's job is Asgard. It's not to come over here
His
and to
job.
be, and to be nice and kind to mortals. That's what he's got Thor for. And he's always telling Thor, "Hey, you're spending too much time down there. I'm trying to get ready. You ready to take over up here?" And Thor's like, "Nah, no.
They need help.
I want to
There's
come
a
over
lot
here."
of mess going on.
He's like, "I want to
there.
come over here and help out these mortals." He's like, "And what happens when Mangog or Surtur,
He took care of them.
we got all this stuff going on over here." And Thor's
He
kind of
did
like,
both.
"Well, so." But I've always loved Sif.
Surgeon.
I've always loved Sif, and when they brought Sif on, I was like, "Yes, this is great. This is good. This is where he should. This is where he should be." I just never really cared for Jane Foster. And mind you, this is reading back. Okay, this is reading back. When I got on, Sif was already a fixture. When I got on, this is like an issue or two before Walt Simonson, but Sif was now giving Thor the ultimatum that, look, you need to choose. It's either me or it's either me or Midgard. Because Sif was like, look, Midgard's cool. I don't live there. I'm an Asgardian. Asgard is my home. And Thor was, always divided between the two. And this is the issue right before 337. We get Beta Ray Bill in, and then Sif does the other thing. I'm gonna go off an adventure with Beta Ray Bill, and Thor's like, "You're gonna what?" He's like, "Okay, keep it closed." While everything is going. So this is reading back. And Jane's character, there's nothing wrong with her as a Turtle character. I just never felt she was a really good fit for Thor. And like Odin, I agree with him. It's like, when it was time to go, he's like, "Get out." Okay, no problem.
All right, then. Spinnerack out. The slam job is done.
That's right. We're going to keep on slamming until we get back to true Thor, the Odin son. Thanks, Spinnerack. You saved me money.